Hello, everyone. My name is Allie Virtue, and I am a functional medicine nutritionist and owner of Parkside Nutrition. So today we are starting a series of explaining diets. So why they work, why they don't work, pros, cons, so you can make an informed decision. Maybe you can take some things that work really well from a certain diet for you and change things that aren't working for you. So my goal is to just educate on how diets work. So let's dig into it. On this edition, we are talking about paleo. So you see my little caveman here, and we'll talk about how this came about. So diets we're going to cover, we just covered the ketogenic diet in this series. So if you haven't seen that one yet, go back and watch it. Today we're talking about paleo. Next up, we have carnivore. So based on the idea of eating like humans did in the Paleolithic era, that was about 2.5 million years ago to 10,000 years ago. So very simple foods. Think of things that you can hunt, gather, things like that. So again, not very processed foods. The historic intended macronutrient breakdown or balance is about 35% fat, 35% carbohydrates, 30% protein. I say historically because protein sources that were available in this era were usually a little bit leaner. So in modern times with paleo, fat, I find with clients, and when I have done this in the past, tends to be a little bit higher. Carbohydrates, it's a lower carbohydrate diet. Typical carbohydrate diet, or just say an average diet, maybe you're someone who's a little bit more athletic, would probably be closer to 40 to 50% of their diet would probably be from carbohydrates. Overall, fairly balanced, but can skew that way. Paleo, what can you eat? What can you not eat? So you can eat meat, seafood, eggs, vegetables, fruit, tubers, starches like potatoes, sweet potatoes, yams, turnips. Oils are mostly olive oil, avocado oil, coconut oil, lots of spices. Add salt to your food. Sweeteners, this depends on the version of paleo that you're doing, but some will include honey and maple syrup as a sweetener. Some will include some grains, maybe gluten-free grains like rice, but it kind of depends. But I took this as the kind of more stricter view of paleo. What you can't eat. So you're not eating processed sugar, soft drinks, artificial sweeteners, things like that. Dairy is out with most strict paleo options. Grains, pastas, anything that contains gluten, flours, things like that. Lentils, legumes are usually out. Some people will bring those in later, but typically those are removed. And then vegetable oils, things like soybean oil, sunflower oil, cottonseed, grapeseed, canola oil, and alcohol are all removed on this particular plan. So pros and cons. So a little history with this. I got my start with paleo. I did a Whole30 challenge and then went on from there to do a paleo diet for many years. And I did feel better, but as we'll talk about the cons of this, it doesn't really teach you about portion sizes, macros, things like that. So it is very easy to increase the calories on paleo. So it's not always like inherent weight loss with this particular diet strategy. So the pros of it, really good emphasis on whole, simple foods. Removes a lot of triggers or inflammatory foods, things like alcohol, highly processed things, etc. Lowers appetite, because again, we're hopefully increasing protein. We're usually moderating fat, hopefully, and decreasing a lot of high sugar foods. So this is really good for moderating your appetite and keeping you more full for a longer period of time and less snacking overall. So in some scenarios, this can lead to a calorie deficit and weight loss for people. This can be really good for autoimmune conditions because it removes a lot of common inflammatory foods and allows the body to heal. It can stabilize blood sugar. Again, I say can with an asterisk because any diet can be done well and any diet can be done very poorly. So if you do this in a good, positive way, and we're not just having a lot of paleo food products, this can be better at lowering your blood sugar, but not guaranteed. Can also improve insulin resistance, again, because we're moderating the carb intake. And then it can be good for weight loss if we are in a calorie deficit with this, because it does increase our nutrition. It usually lowers our appetite. But like we see in our cons over here, one, it can feel very restrictive for certain people, depending on where you're coming from as far as food. If you are an athlete, it might not be enough carbohydrate for you. If you don't know anything about or haven't practiced smaller portions or moderating your portions, if weight loss is a goal, this can be kind of trouble because it doesn't really imply any specific portions, calories, macronutrients, etc. usually, unless we're like tracking in the app or something like that. It does eliminate dairy, and while dairy can be an inflammatory food for some people, it can also be incredibly nutritious and full of probiotics that can be really beneficial for gut health. So that is one that really depends on the person. And then it can also be too high in fat or low in carb for some athletic populations. So we need to take that into account. Could impact your performance for that. And then might not be good for people who don't have a gallbladder or have gallbladder issues. issues like we talked about in the keto episode of this. If you don't have a gallbladder, this is going to make fat digestion very difficult, especially if we have a higher fat meal coming on board. That could be really difficult for you, and it could lead to loose stools or diarrhea. With paleo, I think this is more of something that you could watch if you have gallbladder issues. You could work hard to pay attention to your fat intake. You could consciously keep that lower. And because it's not so high as the ketogenic diet, remember, ketogenic diet is around 70% of your calories are coming from fat. Paleo hopefully is only 35%. So it is a very different macronutrient balance. And so for this one, you could probably supplement with ox bile or bile salts to help with that fat digestion. But again, probably need to work with a professional and make sure that that's a good option for you. So takeaways. Paleo, I think, can be an absolutely great start for people. Really encourages a lot of simple whole foods, removal of a lot of just junk food and processed food, which is really good. Very good for reducing sugar cravings. Usually once you get over the hill, initially it can be really tough and feel like you're craving a lot of sugar. But once you have been on it for a little bit, I think that's a big, big benefit of it. It does need a lot of guidance as far as macros and portions and calories if weight loss is a part of your goal. Highly recommend tracking in the Chronometer app. This is really helpful for learning what protein sources are higher in fat and lower in fat. I really recommend leaning towards those leaner sources of protein, and that can help with the weight loss goal. And also, since paleo encourages a lot of high fat foods, still nutritious, but olives, olive oil, nuts and seeds, nut butters, things like that, that can help you kind of balance that so you actually do achieve a calorie deficit if that is a part of your goals. And then you should always modify this based on how you feel. I've had a lot of clients that liked paleo. They felt a little better. Maybe they saw some weight loss, but maybe their performance suffered a little bit. So they didn't have enough energy to fuel their workouts properly, or they didn't see the muscle growth that they were hoping for despite working hard in the gym. So that's really helpful to know. So you can probably work with a professional that can help you balance the macros. Even if you like eating that way, if it gives you some benefits, that would be a good addition. And then as always with any dietary change, make sure you're talking to your healthcare provider, especially if you are on any medications. And then it's really important to get regular blood work so you can track trends, see how your progress is doing, see how your body is responding to these dietary changes, and make any adjustments if you need to. All right, if you have any questions, feel free to type them in the comments below and I will get back to you, and stay tuned for the next episode of how diets work and how they don't. Lastly, make sure you hit subscribe and you subscribe to the email list at parksidenutrition.com for more free resources and downloads like this.